Hello, I'm Nan Simonson. I am the author of Aging Powerfully, and at almost 71, I am determined to age and in such a way, because we're all going to um, age in such a way that as the years go by, I get and stay stronger and stronger. And the way to do that is to make decisions at all times that serve us health wise. And here we are going into the holidays, and oh my gosh, that's where so many of us, and I know that in the past when I was struggling for decades and decades with eating disorders, eating disorder, I would feel sort of trapped in the because of the prevalence of food and the importance put on food um, during the holidays by the mass media really wreck us in terms of getting us in some really bad habits. And so I thought I would just say a few words about the eating during the holidays to maintain our health. I want to tell you about a holiday party I went to. Yes, I've already been to one. We have friends who do their holiday party, and if they happen to see this, hi Steve and Todd, they do their holiday party the first weekend of December. Isn't that smart? Because then a lot of people are being pulled in all directions, and it's harder to find people available. So we had our first holiday party last Saturday, and I am whole food plant based. My diet is a vegan diet. I don't eat any animal product of any kind, and that means no eggs, cheese, milk, meat, fish. Um, I do it for health reasons, I do it for environmental reasons, I do it for the animals. Uh, you may or may not be on board with that, but I think you're probably on board, or you wouldn't even be listening to this, to healthy eating. What is healthy eating? Evidence shows that the standard American diet is not healthy because we have a population that is getting larger and larger and sicker with what we call chronic diseases, 80% of which, like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, uh, um, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, a lot of these things, some people believe are genetic. Well, I have a massive amount of genetic frailty in this body, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, colon cancer, as well as breast cancer. And uh, on my mother, my brother, my father, my grandparents. However, genetics may load the gun. It is epigenetics. It is our lifestyle that pulls the trigger. 80% of chronic diseases are lifestyle related. In other words, we can make a difference. So we make some decisions. Standard American diet is highly inflammatory. What makes it inflammatory? Let's look at that. And then you can kind of look at the things that you might want to amend. What makes it highly inflammatory are the processed foods because our body is fed primarily by plant based foods because those foods primarily not only have protein, but it's a cleaner protein than an animal protein, which is an acidic protein. Some people think, oh, well, if you eat animal food, you're going to have less osteoporosis, you'll get more calcium. Not true. Evidence shows that the acidic protein causes our bones to try to neutralize that with calcium. Where does the calcium come from? It comes from our bones. So they shoot calcium into the mix, and that's not what we want. The countries with the highest amount of osteoporosis, bone fracture, etc., are those countries that have the highest intake of milk and meat, and eggs and cheese. So let me just say that the animal proteins are inflammatory, the plant proteins are not at all, and you can get massive amounts. You will get massive amounts of protein just by eating a variety of plant foods. The other thing that is not only inflammatory but is contraindicated for our vascular system are fats, animal fats. We eat massive amounts in our country of not only animal food, many people 3 times a day for every meal and snacks, but also for with the fats. Even chicken breast without skin is 25 to 30% fat, and part of it is saturated fat. So the saturated fats are killing us. In addition to that, the processed foods. The other part that, well, you have to know about the microbiome to understand why processed foods are so inflammatory. Not only are they because they are unidentifiable by the microbiome, all of the bacteria in our gut, but they have so many additional ingredients. Pick up just about anything, even a health bar, a plant milk that's supposed to be healthy. And if you look at the ingredients on a lot of them, you're going to see sugars. You're going to see, in some cases, carrageenan. Put that back immediately. That is a carcinogenic emulsifier. There are some stabilizers and emulsifiers or additives in some of the plant milks, maybe xanthan gum, maybe guar gum, that aren't great but not really bad, but carrageenan's not good at all. If you look at a lot of the healthiest foods that are packaged and look at the ingredients in them, you're going to see a lot of sugars called by a number of different names or identified by a number of different names. You look at added sugars, not just total sugar, but added sugars, and that means all the extra sugars that they're added beyond what the food itself has. I don't mind the sugars in food. If I take a package of frozen corn, there's a certain amount of sugar in there, but it's the natural sugar. No problem for your body. You add the sugar, and it causes all kinds of disruption, not only to our neurotransmitters. I've talked before about that. Processed sugar hits the stomach. It's read by the neurons in the stomach that send to the brain a message to shoot out dopamine, and before you know it, you're loving that feeling so much that you just want more and more sugar for that reason. But it also disrupts your ability to use insulin properly, and you end up with problems with diabetes when you're eating a lot of sugar. Well, most processed foods are loaded with sugars. They also have a lot of chemicals to make them stable that our body doesn't know what to do with, including the microbiome. So when you disrupt your microbiome, the only thing that doesn't is whole foods and plant-based. If you disrupt your microbiome, then you've got all kinds of problems. And when you are that inflamed, that's when we start getting the chronic diseases at our weakest points, and that's where the genetics can come in. So I'm going to put all that aside. That wasn't really what I meant to go on and on about. So what do? Make a decision first that the holidays are going to be a traditionally magnificent time for you. Enjoy what you see around you and what it means to be with other people, what it means to socialize, but look at knowing what I just said, or whatever your part of that commitment would be, to eat healthy foods instead of inflammatory foods during your holiday meals. Decide that you're going to do that. Make a list maybe of the foods that you simply love during the holidays, and then find a way. And you can just put this into Google, and that would be either plant-based or low calorie. Or see, low calorie doesn't always do it, because a lot of the processed foods are low calorie because they put a bunch of garbage instead of actual food in there that fills up space, that hits a certain satiety mechanism. And that's not even satiety. What it is it just pings your brain with salt, oil, and sugar, and you think you're just as satisfied as can be, but the processed food leaves you hungrier sooner. And therefore, it has been shown that people with the same amount of calories as somebody eating whole foods can and will get hungry sooner from one meal to a next and eat 30% more and gain, well, weight to represent all those extra calories. So let me get back to my story. We went to this party that Steve and Todd offered, and they're sensitive to those friends of theirs, my husband and I included, uh, and so they make plant-based foods. We normally all bring a bunch of our own things to share with everybody, those of us that are plant-based, but they said, no, we've got it all. And so they had several vegan options. The side dishes, they had a vegan cake, a chocolate cake, and what happened is they also had a big pot of scarlet runner bean stew, or like a soup. And I've talked about scarlet runner beans before. You can go to my website, nansimonson.com, bring up my YouTube channel, and you'll see scarlet runner bean and mushroom stew, that, or ragu. That is just amazing. They're little teeny, well, they're not. They're a big bean, and once they're soaked, they're a really big bean. And once you put it in your mouth, it's like it fills your mouth. It's so meaty, delicious, and it has a consistency that's really quite nice. Well, they made a pot of those. What happened is, while Tim and I were eating our meal, which was everybody's meal actually, we had the scarlet runner beans. They had Brussels sprouts with pumpkin seeds and dried sweetened cranberries that were sweetened with apple juice. So they were even healthier than the ones that are soaked in sugar. And then they had a huge pan of roasted vegetables, potatoes and carrots and squashes, and just this menagerie, cornucopia of vegetables chopped and roasted with rosemary and other herbs and spices. And both of those were vegan. They were made with a little olive oil and not even a lot of it, but everybody took piles of the Brussels sprouts, as did we, piles of the roasted vegetables, as did we, so without even thinking about it. Now, they made the beans for the vegetarians, the vegans actually, because there was no animal fat in there at all. And yet, once they were discovered by the crowd was saying, oh, we want some bowls. They only had a couple bowls for us out. And they ended up having to put out a lot of bowls. We're watching all these people go by with bean soup, and we're thinking to ourselves, wait a minute, that was for us. You guys have the turkey and the smoked turkey and the cooked ham. But I guess my point is, without even knowing it, this crowd of 22, 25 people had and were enjoying basically a vegan meal. So what does that all come down to? If you know that the healthiest foods for us are lean foods, primarily whole food, primarily plant-based, going into the holidays, I would say, think of the foods that you love, the holiday foods you love. I love mashed potatoes. Well, I have on my website and on nansimonson.com is the website, and then the YouTube channel, there's even a video on it, a wonderful mashed potato that includes some mashed cauliflower, easy to do, and that has a sauce, a cream sauce. It's not really a sauce, it's just, instead of milk, made of cashews, and they are fabulous, and lots of garlic. I have loaves, like a loaf that you can have instead of a meatloaf. I have muffins that you can have that have no egg and no butter or no cheese. Um, every recipe in there is either salt, oil, sugar free or very low on salt and very low on oil, but none of them have regular refined sugar. But you can go to any website. You could simply Google low fat, plant based, or low fat, healthy, whatever it is, um, Wellington or pot roast. I have a pot roast on my channel that is potatoes, carrots, big chunks of potato, big chunks of carrot, and the meat is portobello mushrooms, sort of sliced into big wedges. And there's some wine in the sauce, and it is so delicious that you don't need to have meat. But if you wanted meat, you could eat a large portion of all of these vegetables with a very small amount of meat, cutting down on that saturated fat, cutting down on the excess of animal protein that is causing inflammation, and have a really, really good meal. So I was listening to somebody whom I enjoy, and who is very popular on social media. Her name is Plentiful Kiki, Plentiful, Plentiful Kiki. I don't know her age. Maybe she's in her 20s or 30s. She has children. She shows photos all the time of her very large. I don't know what she weighed, 180, 190. She's 5'3", and she lost 70 or 80 pounds, and she talks about it, and she did this on a plant-based diet. And I was looking at what she recommended for holiday fare, because her determination is, I'm going to go through the holidays with my family, loving the traditions that we have lived with forever. I bake a apple pie. I bake Christmas cookies. We have certain meals where we expect to have these things. She will, most of the time, use one of her plant-based recipes, and I would highly recommend her website for that as well. She's on Instagram. Her website is plentifulkiki.com. She even has a 28-day weight loss program, and she walks people through it. But while I was listening to her recommendations, I also saw the commonality with when you are whole food plant-based and you've spent some time learning how to maintain your health, and quite often maintain a low weight without even trying, because that's what happened with Tim and me. We're now going on 4 years of plant-based. Both of us are about, well, Tim is about 8 or 9 pounds less than when he started, and he was thin then. I was at one of my thinner weights, and by that I mean, in the teens instead of the 20s, and 120s and this teens. And well, I was carrying about 118, 119 very comfortably. Now I'm like 113, and it just happened. Well, you know how that happens? We get in habits of doing certain things. And one of the things that I am very much in the habit of doing, because it's healthy, is that half of my plate is non-starchy vegetables. So I have this plate of fabulous food. Half of that are non-starchy vegetables cooked in a number of ways. And again, you'll see that in my website. You'll see it on any channel of anyone who's whole food plant-based. Just look for any vegetable you like and Google plant-based or best plant-based green beans, or vegan green beans, for example, or vegan Brussels sprouts like Todd made that were so fabulous. Everybody, and these people weren't going plant-based. They loved the Brussels sprouts. They loved the roasted vegetables. And so by having half of our plate full of those, we were getting lots of antioxidants, phytonutrients, phytochemicals. It was a healthy meal that people, in some cases, sort of accidentally chose which are healthier than anything they could have had otherwise. Um, and the other half would be starchy vegetables or starches, which would be any grain, any legume. The legumes are great for their protein source, but all fruits, well, fruits not as much as vegetables, but all vegetables, including leafy greens. So you want lots of leafy greens in there. Um, have protein, and they have calcium, and they have iron. In any case, and she said that's one of the ways, my just learning that was just part of who I was and what I ate. And I thought to myself, I do that and I don't even think about it. Half non-starchy vegetables, half starchy vegetables, well, starchy plants, which again are grains and legumes or those squashes. Um, and she said something that I hadn't thought about, but start off with two of your non-starches. For example, we always have a side salad if the main dish doesn't have greens, or if the main dish doesn't have a salad type thing. Like right now, we're still getting these fabulous, we're in Southern California, from our farm store, we still get these huge, gorgeous, delicious tomatoes. And so I do a tomato salad with tomatoes, cucumber, red onion, some chopped Kalamata olive, some basil, fresh basil or cilantro, and then balsamic vinegar over that, a reduced balsamic vinegar, toss it all up, a little salt, and then some pepper. And it's just a delicious filling salad with all that beauty of the herbs, meaning the cilantro, and the lycopene from the tomato, and on and on and on. Um, so she says start with two non-starchy vegetables and then have your starch. And if you feel a need that you want to go back for seconds, just do that. Rinse and repeat. Do the same thing again so that you're filling up with those foods that will fill you up but are not so calorie dense. Get into a habit of having very satisfying sauces. On my website, what I love are the dressings that we use. The ranch dressing, that is, they're all oil free. So they're relatively low calorie. Some are higher calorie than others, but I don't count calories. I don't even think about it. I just go for whole food, plant based, and some of them, like my Chef AJ house dressing, which you'll find on my site, has tahini. Well, that's sesame, and it doesn't have a lot, and it goes a long way, but that's higher calorie than the ranch dressing that has no seed or nut in there at all. As a matter of fact, its body comes from some mashed potato. Can you believe a dressing made with mashed potato? And it is delicious. Have your dressings, have your sauces, like the sour cream that I use, which is a tofu-based sour cream, and you can use that, or the nut-based yogurts that you can find all over, unsweetened. And then you can make some sauces out of those. But if you have sauces you love, salsas, for example, pico de gallo that you love, cheese sauces. I've got some cheese sauce on my website. You have things to add to your food to give it the kind of flavor that just makes you happy. Then you can eat just about anything, put a little sauce on it. Now, my husband, this was something that we just had a recent conversation about. He wouldn't touch the vegan sour cream because in his mind, sour cream meant fat, which it is. It is one of the highest sources of dairy, fat in dairy, because it's a concentrated fat. It just happens to be whipping cream soured in a way. You can think of it that way. Very high calorie, very full of saturated fat. And so he wouldn't touch it. I had to persist in telling him that this is nothing more than lemon juice and garlic and celery powder, not celery powder, garlic and onion powder, and silken tofu. In other words, this sour cream that is so good, I've served it to everybody, everybody loves it, is a plant protein source, a low-fat plant protein source that is very, very flavorful. So it actually adds protein to your meal and gives you massive amounts of flavor. So all of this to say, fall in love with the plant-based protein, not protein, but the plant-based sauces, because you can flavor, well, we all the time will have these open face tostada. I got this idea from Chef AJ, Guerrero brand, roasted or actually baked tortillas that we then fill as if we were filling a taco and eat that way rather than the fold over. Both are good, but we just love those. And we served that to the grandkids, and that was Christmas dinner. I'm sorry, Thanksgiving here at the house because we don't do animals. They loved them. Filled them with all kinds of good things. And that sauce went on top. And then there was cheese sauce that could go on top of that. And the cheese sauce wasn't real cheese, but it tasted just like real cheese. And there's recipes on my website for that as well. What you can't live without, and you can't live without it made exactly the way Mom used to make it, maybe full of butter, maybe full of cheese. Have it once, have it twice, and then be done with it. Don't let it wreck your day. Don't go on and on the way I used to. If I thought I ate too much, I would just binge. Don't do that. It's too hard to get yourself back down from that. And if you can, make it leaner, make it lighter. You get used to that and you fall in love with it that way, and anything very rich becomes even problematic to eat because it just tastes too much. It's a good problem to have, to neuroadapt to real food. It's a great problem to have. But if you have to make the cookies, or you want to make the sweets, or you want to make the brownies, all of those I have in plant-based form. But if you got to go back to, the recipe that is traditional to your family, do it once, eat it, and then send it away, take it to other people's homes. Just don't leave it in the house, because if you do it day after day, you're going to want to do it day after day. Whatever you do that's very rich, that's very decadent, that's very high calorie, is training your brain to want that more and more, because that's almost an ancestral survival. It's not almost, it is an ancestral survival mechanism. And in a way, it's very hard to fight when you get into that habit. Plan ahead. When you're going to someone's home, don't go hungry. When you're going out to dinner, don't go hungry. Have something to take off some of your appetite. Before we went to Todd and Steve's, I wasn't sure what they were going to have, and so I had a couple of thick, because I always batch cook sweet potatoes, the purple Hawaiian sweet potatoes, the Japanese sweet potatoes that are purple outside, white inside, and it's almost like if you closed your eyes, it's almost like eating a piece of cheesecake. Now, I've neuroadapted, but that texture and that sweetness is almost like a piece of cheesecake, and on top of it I spread a little nut butter or date paste, and oh my gosh, it's like a cookie. A couple of slices of that with some tea so that I didn't go starving, because you think and let me back up, and eat as you would during the day, so that you don't go, even if you don't think you're hungry, you don't go needing to fill up on a day's worth of calories all at one meal, because in some cases you start and you just can't stop. So have your regular breakfast, eat enough for your lunch, again, so that you don't set yourself up to try to make up an entire day's calories at one meal. A lot of people do that, and quite often they simply overeat on everything, and quite often even have too much to drink because they're anxious and they're tense. Fill your plate once at a buffet table if you're out at a crowd or in a party, and then stay away from the buffet table. The more you look at a food, the more you want it. So go off and socialize and sit with people and enjoy everything about what the holidays mean to us besides food. And I would say that just in closing, but let me just mention a couple things. Have your house filled with healthy things, things that you like my sweet potatoes. I love them. And again, you may think that's really odd, but you neuroadapt, and they are a healthy food that fill you up, and um, that are loaded with carotenoids and all kinds of things to keep you from getting colds during this colder weather. I say that in Southern California, it'll be what, 70 something today. Um, but a lot of you are in cold weather if you're listening to this on the East Coast. When you go to restaurants, plan ahead. Again, don't go hungry. You may even want to split a plate with somebody because restaurants feed us way too much. And if you're going out a lot, you may find that's a problem. Um, and if you get off track, just get right back on it again. Don't punish yourself. Um, don't don't keep it going. Um, have a few days of clean meals. The cleaner the meal, the less processed, the more the food is real food. Fruits, vegetables, including tubers, nuts and seeds, grains and legumes. The more of those real foods you have. And when I say nuts and seeds, we don't get the roasted, salted nuts. They're too easy to eat an entire package of. When we have nuts, we're doing it for our omega-3 fatty acids, like walnuts especially, selenium from the Brazil nuts, and they are raw nuts, and we take a few of them and that's it. We don't put out bowls of salted roasted because they've also been they're somewhat processed. The oils are usually not good oils, and it's too easy to eat too many of. So I think that's it. And I hope you're having a great day. I know I'm going to. I hope you got something out of this. I hope I was somewhat helpful. And I was going to say, if I don't talk to you again, well, I'll do a couple of Facebook Live um, events before Christmas, but we're in Hanukkah. So if you are celebrating Hanukkah, my daughter-in-law does. Happy Hanukkah. I believe this might be it. Is this 9? I don't know. Anyway, it is December 7th. I hope you are enjoying the holidays and not getting stressed with how much more there is to do before Christmas or the end of the year. And thank you for joining me whenever you do. All right. Bye-bye.